Consumers are no longer quietly adapting to market conditions. They're actively reshaping the grocery industry. By rewriting the rules of how, where, and why they shop, it has created a grocery reality that demands a smarter, faster, and more flexible strategic approach. But the message to grocery retailers is clear: keep up or get left behind. And the need for customer-centric strategies is arguably most evident in merchandising, and more specifically within the beverage landscape, where innovation has been abundant. In fact, the grocery aisles and coolers are overflowing with boundary-pushing opportunities, spanning flavor innovation to new category creation and even categorical mashups. Furthermore, there's a powerful movement happening, one that's packing beverages with functional ingredients previously only seen across the supplement aisle. No longer confined to niche brands targeting gym rats and granola heads, functional beverages have become household staples. But blindly pushing this exciting beverage industry era forward can sometimes cause potential challenges, which was the central topic of our dynamic conversation with the VP of National Merchandising at Albertsons Companies, Buster Houston. Yet, as you'll quickly notice, it's grocery industry leaders like Buster that really lean into these challenges, ensuring customers are wowed while also acting as helpful consultants to beverage brands vying for market share. But before jumping into these interesting topics and many more, I wanted to quickly provide some additional context. For anyone watching the video version of this podcast episode, you might notice one, the background is different, and that's because it was captured on site at the Beverage Forum. But two, I have a co-host, Dino Sardi, who along with Danny Stepper graciously invited me again to the new era of this prestigious gathering of beverage industry executives, where I focused on helping them launch a new podcast called Poor Decisions. So do me a huge favor and follow the Poor Decisions radio handle across all social media platforms, as the podcast will feature weekly episodes unpacking the untold stories behind the world's most iconic and emerging beverage brands. Also, an extra special thanks to Cognizant for not only being the title sponsor of the Beverage Forum 2025, but supporting this awesome piece of content. Whether you are a professional like me seeking cognitive performance or an individual focused on maintaining mental sharpness, Cognizant resonates with everyone striving for brain health. As the gold standard for acetylcholine, Cognizant is not just about supporting memory, it's about embracing life to the fullest. Learn more at the link in the description. But without further delay, here is the recent conversation we had with our good friend, Buster Houston.
I'm excited you guys are having me again. This is a blast.
You're a market maker, Buster. You put butts in seats.
Tell me more. No, this is fun. This is fun for us too. Getting to see a lot of folks that I see once a year, right? And talk about what we talk about.
So a bit of a self-serving question, but you were here last year.
Yep.
You're here again this year. What do you think about the difference?
I didn't know what to expect last year, right? It's the first time I'd done it. I was so impressed at last year. And all of the prep work I've seen getting into it, I was like, this is going to be huge. And you show up and it's huge. So kudos to you and the team. I think you've created an amazing networking event. And it's really like a must do, right? So you were stuck with only me last year, and then Phil Markert was here with me from the alcohol side. As you can see outside here, we've got a quorum of folks.
That's incredible, and hopefully it's efficient for you guys. I mean, hopefully you guys are meeting everybody and have a chance to see what's out there.
Yeah, absolutely. These matter. These matter a lot. Seeing that one thing that is the next Poppy or whatever that brand is going to be is important. And us getting to know those folks and finding ways that we can collaborate through all of our avenues of business to ultimately get this thing on the shelf, which you and I and all of us know how hard that is to do in this industry.
What are the things you're looking for? What are the categories you're excited about right now?
Well, I can tell you the things I know I'm going to see.
That's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, Danny talked earlier about the blurring of the lines, and it feels like a lot of the stuff is just let's add one more ingredient to it. The blurring of the lines is real. This aisle used to be pretty simple, right? You had carbonated, you had water, you had energy, you had sports drinks, and maybe we'll call it, seltzer waters. Pretty easy to shop. It is so complicated to go up and down these aisles, and the shopper 3 to 4 seconds to make a decision, and they got 87 attributes on a can, it's very difficult for a shopper to know what they're getting. So when I think of the folks I'm meeting out here and they're talking to me about their attributes, first question, where am I going to put this thing, right? That gives you and me the best chance.
Because stores don't get any bigger.
I don't have store stretchers, I like to tell people. So, where are you going to fit into the game? Where are the eyeballs going to come from to find this? And then, how are we ultimately going to get these things in a basket, right? The world's changed a lot with media and influencers and those things. So obviously I look at that as an attribute that if you've got an influencer, that's a start, right? I mean, you get millions and millions of people that are friends that you can tell them. You have an advantage in that sense. Yeah. But, why does a customer need to buy it? And how are you going to tell them? Because to your point, I got a shelf. And typically a new brand doesn't get prime real estate in a store that the eyeballs are right on.
Yeah.
Right?
You don't mean that at the very top or down at my ankles? That's
something like that tends to happen, right? That tends to happen. So, what can we do together? Because, for me, I'm going to put in as much effort as they are. I want to get a win out of this too, right? I want to have a customer come to us and see something special in our stores. So, I go on the journey with them. So we take these decisions very, very serious.
When you guys work on, like, you talked about the blurring of the lines, I think about that in the sense of like the choose your own adventure, and that's can be good or bad. But when you are a new brand and you do have kind of multifunctional aspects to your product, do you guys help them maybe look at different spots within the grocery store? Because they can obviously be in maybe different areas. Like, talk about maybe like non-alcoholic beer. It's like which maybe set do they work best in or that. Do you guys have to take an active role sometimes and tell them, oh, you have a better chance of maybe performing well here over that? Maybe that was your first idea, but maybe there's another thought here.
It's a fascinating thing that over the last few years, you actually, you have dialogue together where they're asking your opinion on a topic where they came into the business. But yeah, absolutely. Not only that, I know at Expo we talked, you had a couple brands that we introduced you to our produce department because I actually thought that was a better avenue based on the ingredients and how we were going to go to market on it. And hopefully that works out. It seems like it's been a good conversation and it makes a lot of sense for us. So not only the conversation of where that works up and down the beverage aisle, but frankly, where do we locate it? To your point, does it go in a different piece of real estate? Because we need to get the best opportunity for the shopper to buy that product in our stores. Complicated. It is so complicated. Our conversations internally about where things go is large. Mixers is a great one. Some stores it's over by ALK, others it's with me in the beverage aisle. And then obviously, to your point, those micro conversations of that item within what we define as the segment that's going to give it the best chance. But it has gotten really complicated. Energy used to be energy. Now you got, pre-workout, you got post-workout, you've got just flat out energy. I need it. You've got more of a female angle on it, right? We talked this morning a little bit about Alani Nu and Bloom and some of these brands that are angled that way. It's very complicated. Another thing is just like a ready to drink coffee. You used to just be coffee. Now you're getting protein milks, right? So
and how do you keep Folgers on the shelf at the same time?
There's just a lot of those complicated things that we've got to get figured out day in, day out. But these are great problems, by the way. These are great problems.
But it's not just new products, too. It's like new categories. Like, I go into stores and I'm like, holy smokes, there's a full shelf of Beatbox. Like, that wasn't even a category 5 years ago. Modern soda, not even a category a few years ago. So how do you keep up with, like, just new categories?
Yeah, I mean, let's just take protein, right? Core Power, Muscle Milk, those folks, Don't Quit, great brand coming onto the shelves. That used to just sit in sports drinks, right? And we've identified that as that rocket ship needs to stand by itself, right?
Yeah.
And we need to pull the brands like Slate and Spilt and those and move them to different segments to get into a defined protein set. We've got to introduce the shopper to that, right? And we got to create trading levels now that we put you into that defined real estate. So, it's a great question of identifying, when it's a standalone and when it's not. To your point, modern soda totally justified that. I mean, that rocket ship has really taken off. It's super exciting. But within a grocery store, the things you have to do in regards to create those destinations is vast, right? There's gives and there's takes. We talked about there isn't a store stretcher for us, so we've got to make some tough decisions out there. And as you well know, there's not a segment in beverage that is not growing and doesn't have a strong 3 to 5 year CAGR. So we have to make decisions around that, and then ultimately, you got to manage in stock, variety, trendy, and all that kind of stuff. So, that's what we do. We have to make tough decisions day in, day out. Make sure that our shoppers are getting what we think they want every day.
It's just you mentioned protein, and I think about everybody, I guess, had thought you go to the pharmacy section to pick up those products, and then eventually it's gotten to such a popularity state that some of those biggest brands, think about like Premier Proteins and things. I mean, that's $2 billion of scan data. Like, they have the justification probably to move into a section that's close to maybe Gatorade or something like that. They're a brand that has that power, but all these other brands, do they carry along with it? Do you move the whole protein section into the more mainstream side because that people are going into that? Or is it something where, like you mentioned, like the blurred lines is tough because Gatorade has a Gatorade protein. You have coffee, like a Slate that has like everything is like multifunctional at this point that it's hard to separate. But then, eventually, I guess when they mature, you have to move them away from, or at least in the best, case scenario for you guys is like the foot traffic in a pharmacy section is lower than the mainstream aisles. So like you would like to move them out if they are going to get, more revenue, more sell through.
Yeah, I think nutrition is a great example. We have adult nutrition, we have active nutrition. There's so many different ways to look.
That's adjacent to meal replacement.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So, we talk a lot about that. The one thing, the positive is you can drive traffic to a section of the store that doesn't get as much traffic when you leave it in that area. The other is you can bring more people into the audience when you move it over to a section that has more traffic. So there's good ways to look at it. I talk about blurring the lines. Even in nutrition, there's blurring in the lines. I mean, for us, the term adult nutrition, we used to know what that was, but now it's becoming more functional with it, and others are using it. So that is an active debate day in, day out with us on what we want to do. I would say, from a locomotion of moving something from, 80 aisles that way to this way, that's a massive undertaking, right? But as you start to peel back some of these segments, it feels like it's the right thing to do. Protein, it was kind of a catch-all, food, bev, all these powders, all these different worlds. But from a consumer perspective, you can integrate or you can segregate, right? And we've done a lot of testing throughout, and it's kind of almost inconclusive on what the best angle is. So we continue to live in a world of figuring out what we think is the best for us in regards to those worlds. But customers are looking for it for a lot of different reasons and a lot of different, I'd say, use cases. So we want to make sure that we are a company that's known for it. The other thing would be if you look at a protein shopper, they're a big e-com. They use their phones. They know how to do those things. So how do we get the impulse online, right? Because we know some of the folks that are getting that business are online retailers. How do we pick up more of that business, right? How do we get them to see impulse in a store is easy, right? We put it right near the front. We put a compelling price, and we got a good chance, right? We got a good chance. How do we bring that to the online experience? That, hey, we're in this game. We have these brands. We got really good pricing. Check it out. So big focus for us when it comes to nutrition is getting more people just flat out.
Incredible.
It's like the chaos is the opportunity. Like, it's like you're working within these well-established, retail and distribution channels, yet it's probably in one of the, times it has the most flexibility or like just opportunity within that chaos. Like, where do you put it? How do you, like, blurring of categories? How are shoppers getting or wanting to shop, and what hours, and how, all these things I think are messy for everybody, all stakeholders, but it's also, I guess one of the more exciting things because you have the opportunity to maybe do something different. This is the time to do that. So I don't know, for me as a strategist, I'm always like, oh, this is the best time, but I know it could be frustrating for individual stakeholders that, they're looking at things from one angle or another, but this is exciting. This is interesting.
It's it's fun to drive traffic with the center of store, right? We all know that perishables can create an experience, right? You can bring people in with that experience. Center of the store typically is, item and price. Typically I have a brand that the person across the street has. It's really fun when you get into categories like beverage or salty or cookie cracker, that you can do things to be a little bit different and drive traffic in a different way, right? And beverage has really opened that opportunity up for us over the last few years with very compelling innovation, the influencers talking about your stores, the velocities that you can drive with these brands. That's super exciting. The forms, cold, singles, multi-packs, check stand, all of that kind of stuff that we can do to drive traffic with beverage. It is a massive, massive category for us, and it can really impact the foot traffic in these stores. So it's exciting because that doesn't happen with every center store category. So we take it very serious to make sure that we are thinking through how to capture everyone in these neighborhoods with this aisle.
There's certainly a lot of innovation in this aisle. Like we were just talking, there's the beverage category, but then there's probably 50 subcategories, like maybe 500. Like we just named 6 subcategories of protein.
Even what's beverage? Like powders, or is that like just
Great question. Great question.
How do you define it anymore? Like it's so different now than.
But then as you see
How long is this podcast?
I know, we're just going to keep going.
Stop whatever you want. Stop whatever you want. But maybe I'll put it this way. So my final question is, as these categories start exploding and you need to have a representation in these categories, you're just getting more itemization. So how does a buyer manage? Like I imagine, your buyers went from managing 300 SKUs to maybe they're managing double that. Like how do you manage that many SKUs?
It's a heck of a balance too, right? I mean, we've got to manage, pack out, we got to manage turns, we've got to make sure the experience is right, and we know the brands that have been around a long time that drive a lot of volume. You've got to support them on the shelf. You got to support them sometimes on the floor, right?
Yep.
We've got to do that. So again, we're not stretching these stores out. We've got to manage that macro space accordingly. It's nonstop, right? It's nonstop. And, a lot of categories you touch once a year,
yep,
right? And all CPG's innovation, they all know when to deliver it. We all do the same game. We do it. This is one that you're touching the category frequently, right? And you're doing a lot of things outside of, a calendarized process to make sure that you stay in front of these things so that your, 91st brand is where it needs to be. We've got the facings we need, and it's in distribution in these stores. And again, is that in the chilled bev? Is that on the ambient shelf? Is that in the check stands? Is that in the produce coolers? Right. So we definitely need to manage that real estate accordingly. And again, you got to make tough decisions. You do, but you got to look at the customer first, right? What's my impact to them, positively with what I'm going to bring in, and negatively what I might take away, right? What's the transferability of what I'm getting rid of to another brand? And data has been crazy. What we can do with data now, what customer data, household data, obviously internal, external. And something we didn't even talk about is just the route to market for me to get this product efficiently and effectively and get it on the shelf, right? Big brands have amazing models, right? Their labor model, their distribution, all of that is amazing. When you get with these smaller brands, we've got to make sure that we've checked all those boxes so that we give all ourselves the best chance to get it on the shelf and get it executed. As you know, it's just complicated. These things end up in a back room. They get buried. We've got an out of stock. Bad experience for the shopper. So it's fluid. Literally, it is a fluid. It is a fluid, and it's a fluid topic with us. But it's so fun. This is such a fun world. Obviously, you guys live in it too. It's such a fun world to be in.
Incredible. Buster, thank you so much. You're so generous with your time. Like speaking for the community here, for you to show up and bring your buyers and be like thirsty for innovation and beating the brush for innovation. It's really incredible to see, and I appreciate it.
Good to see you guys again.
Thanks, Buster.
Take care.
But I hope you enjoyed the first principles thinking that went into my latest YouTube video. If you did, can you do me a favor by hitting that like button? That quick and free action helps YouTube know my content is worth spreading to more people. Also, we're getting really close to reaching my next subscriber goal, and it would be great if you join me on this journey. But to do that, we need to fix the fact that slightly more than 3/4 of you that are watching this video right now are not subscribed to my YouTube channel, and that hurts my feelings. Regardless, I want to thank you for giving me some of your attention and time, and I'll see you on the next one.